There's been yet again some crazy developments with Dark and Darker. I know less and less people are tuning into these, but I still want to talk about and give everyone the lowdown, at least from my perspective and what I've been able to dig up. And again, I've been talking to some Korean people who have been translating documents for me, sending me documents, giving me additional context and things like that, things that might have not been reported in Western media. And then this happened as well. Essentially, one of the developers for Dark and Darker, one of the Iron Mace team, woke up and decided, I'm going to just commit to chaos today. And they tagged everyone on the Discord server and essentially admitted to going behind their boss's back to post a GoFundMe that wasn't planned and apparently nobody knew about, that was asking for $500,000, which is a crazy thing to do and incredibly unprofessional. And why would you ever do this when you have lawyers and things like that, and of course higher ups that might not want this happening? But then of course there was a whole like crazy fiasco where the mods of the Discord thought that the account had been hacked and this was a fraud or a scam, and it just went back and forth for hours. They had to close the Discord, they had to close the Reddit, they had to clarify multiple times, and it's just fucking mental. So let's go through this real quick. I'm not going to read every line because there's no point. Everyone's probably going to be familiar with this at this stage. But essentially there's a big sob story at the beginning about, you know, we had to work with no heat and we were sleeping in sleeping bags in a jiu-jitsu gym, which could be true. But just for logical consistency, I have to tell you, every time I've ever covered a Kickstarter or a crowdfunding case or anything like that, I always say the same thing, and I always will say the same thing. If something starts with like an incredible sob story, you do at least have to critically question whether that's true or not. And I'm going to give you the context here as to why I would question this. And I'm not saying this is not true. I'm not saying there's not a kernel of truth to this. I'm just saying they have every impetus to play this up a little bit for the cameras, so to speak, because of course there's more at play here. Now, they're saying they didn't have heat and they were sleeping in sleeping bags, etc. It is worth noting that the jiu-jitsu gym they were in is owned by one of the team members, like one of the higher-ups. So with that being said, this person clearly has money. And when the company was registered, which was in October, late October of 2021, they registered it with 200 million won in capital, which is about $150,000, roughly, which means they did have some money. Now, that money is obviously not, 20 people were going to be throwing parties with cocaine and strippers, but it is some money. You would probably be able to run heat, and I'm not exactly sure why you would be sleeping at the studio, but they did know that they had a winner on their hands, so it wasn't going to take long. And it didn't, because within a couple months, they were funded $750,000 from a company called Must Ventures Investment, which is a bad translation. It's actually called something else, but you don't really need to know the name. Again, I'll link this article in the video description if you want to go check it out. Very illuminating. And then they were invested in by another company, but there's no clarification on the name of that, for potentially another exact same amount, about $750,000. It says specifically no more than 2 billion won, which is about 1.5 mil. So it's basically anywhere between 750 and 1.5. So they definitely had money for development. It's just maybe those first couple months were a little bit Spartan, so to speak. Now, there's some incredible inconsistencies here, as well as the guy lays it on thick when talking about Nexon. Essentially just says, they're bullying us. We know they're bullying us. The lawyers know, the community knows, everybody knows, and nothing about this is going to hold up in court. I think this is ridiculous to say, and also serves no purpose other than to obviously garner public sympathy. And we've got some posts from some, training lawyers here with game development degrees that are essentially completely disagreeing with that, even in a US court setting. Now, this is not take it as fact, but this is someone who's done probably the most research out of anybody in the West on this, that has a legal background, and they seem to think Dark and Darker and Iron Mace are in a really bad position when this goes to US civil court, because this is going to be fought in multiple jurisdictions, and it's going to be fought, I presume, based on the fact of where and when it's going to release. So why it'll be fought in the West in US court is because Valve is in the West and they're planning to release the game predominantly in the West, and then presumably they would have gotten a publisher to publish in Korea. If it ever got to the point where they were looking for a publisher and one of them actually wanted to touch the game, which none of them will because they've already pulled out, everyone's pulled out of investment at this stage due to the toxic nature, then Nexon would also pursue it civilly in a Korean court. But they are pursuing the people in question for criminal charges. So people could potentially be going to prison for this in Korea. But in the West, it is going to go to a US civil court. So US trainee lawyer. So a US training lawyer has gone over all of this and seems to think Ironmace are shit outlook, basically. And then, of course, just saying that we need money, and if we get the money, we're going to be able to win this legal battle, and then we'll be able to develop the game and release the game everybody wants. Then, of course, just talks more shit about Nexon here, which was kind of funny. And then says, I've set up a GoFundMe so that you guys can donate us to support us in our battle. And this GoFundMe was up for about half an hour, and it raised $45,000, which is fucking insane, which is really good. And I will go over my opinion on this in a little while, but that's really interesting that they were able to raise so much money. But then the GoFundMe got removed because this is just a massive mess. So basically, Lucy announcement, lots of positive feedback. Chat gets closed, announcement deleted. Wardens write, Wardens being the mods of the Discord server, not official employees, that they deemed the account to be hacked, deleted after like 2 to 5 minutes. Lucy then reposted the announcement with lots of negative feedback, which of course he would repost it because it wasn't a hack. Then the Wardens write in general that they had to verify whether it was true. It turns out it is, and Lucy confirms it, and again, both messages were deleted approximately 5 minutes later, which is weird. A message informing not to donate as the entire situation needs to be checked out and confirmed by other devs, deleted and then reposted again. Then the GoFundMe got deleted, the link doesn't work anymore. Then the devs came out and the Wardens, the mods, and said that it is real. But then the second announcement post by Lucy was deleted again, as it wasn't approved by the devs before posting. Now this is just crazy. You can't have employees going rogue like this when your company's literal existence is at stake. So there's a couple ways you can look at this. There's like the conspiracy angle of are they just saying that this guy went rogue and posted this, or was this the actual plan? But then somebody quoted the post that was in the Discord saying this was legit and they just didn't plan to post it yet, which for some reason got deleted on the Reddit. I don't get why. But obviously we can open RevEdit and see what it was, and this post is still in the Discord server officially, saying that the GoFundMe link to support Ironmace, it was legit, however, it was to be used later if necessary. It was posted this morning without approval due to a passionate member of the team taking matters into his own hands. And basically how they now paused the campaign. So there's a minor inconsistency here, and I'm willing to afford that maybe this is just like a translation issue or they just didn't pick their words very well. But they say the GoFundMe link is legit, however, it was to be used later if necessary. But in the post he says he set it up. And those two things are a little bit contradictory, so I'm not really 100% sure on that, but it's not really a big deal in the grand scheme of things. This does raise the question though, why take this down at this point with the incredible support that they were receiving already on it and how willing people were to jump behind this? It just seems odd to remove it. Everything about this seems odd. I'm not really sure which way to go on it. And in terms of my opinion on the GoFundMe in general and just crowdfunding this legal defense, I actually think it's a good idea. I think it's probably not going to matter, but at the same time, it does do some things that are positive for Ironmace in the community, which is essentially they put the ball back in Nexon's court. They say, oh, you know, if you were just planning to bleed us dry and you didn't think you had any case, well, now you need to know you have a case if you're going to, you know, throw good money after bad on this one and try to bleed us out because our community is willing to support us by a very large amount of money. I have no doubt in my mind they would have raised that 500 grand in a couple of hours. And 500 grand is probably going to take you quite far in this one in terms of legal, although unfortunately due to the fact that they would also need to use that money to pay their developers, etc., to keep the lights on and keep the developers at the studio, that 500k is probably only going to be like 6 months at the max. Because lawsuits, people don't understand, are so incredibly expensive, they'd probably need to run another one of these unless it went way over and they raised way more money, which they probably would do in the first place. So I am fully behind this crowdfunding effort because if people do want to, you know, try and support Ironmace and see whether or not Nexon does have any case, so this does sort of remove that option from the table of Nexon are just going to bleed them out in legal fees. Although if this went on multiple years, would people still continue to donate to this? I'm not really sure. At least for the short term, though, this seems to do a lot. And also the fact that they are going to crowdfund this makes sense as to why Ironmace have been very public and focusing specifically on the Western audience to, you know, push their message. Whether or not it's true or not, it makes no difference. This is like their best chance of having anything go in their favor, right? So all this makes sense and I'm completely behind it. But everything, again, it doesn't change my opinion over what I think is going to happen, because I don't think Ironmace are going to win this in any world, in any jurisdiction. Especially after reading this post, and again, we have to take it with a grain of salt, but if you go through all of this, click the links and read what's actually being said, this is so incredibly well put together, and I will leave a link to this in the video description. It's dense reading, especially because legal reading is just one of the most boring things in the world, and it's specifically written to the point where you shouldn't really be able to understand it. But it is interesting if you do really try to get through it. There is also this document that I was sent that's been put together by somebody who's been helping me with the whole Korean research angle of it, which clears up the whole confusion about the CEO that was supposedly investing money in this that didn't, but he did personally. It's just a whole mess, and I don't want to get into it. So yeah, I think that's it for this one. I will just say, I want Iron Mace to have the money to defend this, because I think the biggest shame here would be Nexon winning on a technicality and just basically bleeding them out and running them dry in courts and just being handed the victory due to the fact that they couldn't fight back. That is the no-win scenario, right? Because Iron Mace loses, we don't get the game. Nexon wins, but everyone hates them and the truth never comes out. We need a clear winner here that's decided based on the actual facts of what happened and the law. That's the only way any of this ever makes sense. For most people, they just want the game and they don't care about the truth, as many people have made their position quite clear on this one, which is we don't like Nexon and we're okay if anything happened, which I think is an okay opinion to have, and I understand people having it, but I don't think it's a very fair opinion. And I don't think it would be very fair if either of these sides win or lose, no matter which one it is, without the facts being heard and actually decided in a court. So yeah, we'll see what happens, and if anything else comes out, I'll post an update video. The information's getting so dense at this point that it's just so much to keep track of. But there we go. I'll see you next time. Peace out.